September call-ups. They haven't always been a thing, but they have been a thing for a very long time. Okay, today we're going to talk about September call-ups, how they have changed over time. That is roster expansion that happens every September for every major league team. Right now, you get 2 players expanding your roster out from 26 to 28, but it hasn't always been that way. And I don't know if it's actually a good thing or a bad thing, but I think that there's not a lot of people that know a lot about how this works. Okay, so real quick overview of the timeline, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how the type of impact that these players have moving forward, because I think there is quite a big impact of rookies or guys joining the team late in the season, and there's a good correlation between that and that team going deep into the playoffs. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense to you by the end of the story. All right, so way back in 1910, where it all began, roster sizes were established at 25. So the normal roster was a 25-man roster for a very long time. They put this in play because teams were carrying just however many players and just rotating them into the games and hoarding players. This was before the PA. This is before free agency and arbitration and a lot of the rules that were built to give players a little bit more rights and the ability to take more control of their own careers, which if you've been here at all, that I'm a big fan of that. Okay. Then, 11 years later, in 1921, they established the 40-man reserve roster, or what we now know is called the 40-man, which still lives to today. The 40-man roster is all of the players that can be called up to the big leagues without needing to make any adjustments to their contract. Okay? So, if a guy is on a minor league contract, you cannot call him to the major leagues unless he's put on that 40-man roster. Once you're in the minor leagues and you were after your 5th minor league season, you either are protected on the 40-man, they call it protection, so that you then that team retains they retain the rights to you. They don't have to put you in the big leagues or anything, but your pay goes up quite a bit. Like I think mine went from like $10,000 a year to like $42,000 a year. So I was like, wow, I'm almost making real minimum wage. So that is kind of one of the protections put in place. If you're not protected, you go into something called the Rule 5 draft, which you may have heard Rule 5 guys getting called up. Ryan Presley was one. Ryan Noda was one for us in 2023 with Oakland. Once you're put on that 40-man roster, if you're not put on it, you're picked up in the Rule 5 draft. You have to be in the major leagues for the entire season with that team, unless you go back to the team you were previously on, and your minor league contract continues. So it's in your best interest to stay in the big leagues, get your full year of service time, but you have to get a full year of service time for that to count. So that is kind of how the 40-man functions now and during the regular season. But historically, when these rosters expand in September, because they introduced that, like I said, in 1921, where the rosters can expand in September to basically give the guys who played all year a blow if you need it, or to try out guys for the team next year, right? It's like a spring training at the end of the year, almost like a tryout, especially for the teams that aren't really in the race. So what you saw and what I saw early in my career from 2014 till this changed eventually in 2020 is the teams that were out of it had a ton of players. The teams that weren't as out of it had less, right? They weren't just cycling in a bunch of young guys because they were still trying to make the playoffs, or they were getting ready to go into a playoff atmosphere. And the rosters revert back to the regular rosters size, which is now 26. It was 25 before in playoffs anyways. So you're going to have to kind of backpedal either way. So what could happen, though, especially for teams out of it, is that your bullpen or dugout could end up looking like this. Now you see about 1,000 dudes all in the Boston Fenway home side bullpen dugout, which is actually bigger than the away side. Actually, I believe this is the dugout. I don't think this is the bullpen. Either way, they look the same. So it could be either one. But as you can see, a lot of guys need a knee. Guys jammed in there. It's not big to start from. So these guys, I can't imagine what their clubhouse was like. You run out of lockers. Some benefits of that can be the guys who've been there all for the first 140-ish games can get some rest. And you can cycle in, you can do a line change halfway through the game, you can do all that kind of stuff. But one downside of that is, especially if you get into the playoffs, is if you're constantly giving your guys blows, then sometimes it starts to feel like this, like the end of the school year. And when that happens, you kind of take your foot off the gas, and then it's hard to get yourself back up for the playoffs. So this all changed in 2020, as many rules did in COVID. Now, we had a taxi squad situation. There was no minor league teams playing, so they needed to have some new type of framework to get players in and out in the COVID situation. But one of the big goals was to keep people away from each other. So adding a ton of guys into the locker room didn't make any sense. It was kind of against the whole thing we were trying to do at that point anyway. So that was mostly the benefit. But we decided to keep those rules after 2020 and to this day, because when you have a ton of pitchers and you have a ton of position players, the games take longer because the talent's not as good, and there's just guys moving. You got to move people all over the place. The less moving pieces, the quicker games go. And as you know very, very well, that has been a main goal for the commissioner's office and the rule changes. Something that I don't disagree with. I agree. Faster games are better, and limiting the roster sizes in September have become a big part of that, right? So now the roster sizes are 26 with a maximum of 13 pitchers. I don't know why there is a cap on pitchers. It's super annoying, but when in doubt, make the pitchers have the limit. And then when there's 28 going into September, you get 2 additional guys, 1 position player, 1 pitcher. Now, you pray that pitcher is a bullpen guy, but teams have been going to 6-man rotations and all kinds of stuff. So usually your bullpen's like, oh, we've had 8 all year. Now we have 8 still. Great. We're still going to cover the innings that we have to cover, which stinks. And I preferred it when I could be like, hey, we're up by 4. You can pitch, because it was nice to at least know that you could really pigeonhole yourself, really focus on that role that you usually have, that's my spot. And I'm not going to have to cover any extra things outside of that and get a blow going into hopefully a playoff run. So there are benefits to this for the teams that are competing, okay? It gives you an opportunity to bring a guy up that you maybe haven't had space for because everyone stayed healthy, right? You can get a real reinforcement, or someone comes off the IL at the end of the year and they can then be eligible to pitch in the playoffs and get a month of big league facing hitters or facing pitching so that they can be ready to go. Even if they haven't played much during the season, that still gives them another month to kind of finagle that. And it's just a free spot you can get off the IL without having to move somebody out of the way. That's usually a problem. It alleviates a little bit of the roster crunch, especially if you're trying to manipulate your rosters and get ready for the playoffs. Also, the rules for doubleheaders still apply. So if you have a 28-man roster, you get a 29th guy for the doubleheader, and during the regular season it's 26 to 27. So, and we already mentioned you have to be on the 40-man to be called up. So that's how that role works. And in order to be eligible for the playoffs, you have to be either on the 60-day IL or on the 40-man roster by noon on September 1st. That is a current rule. So on September 1st, if there was anyone that they wanted to select their contracts guys that weren't on the 40-man and put them on the 40-man, they had to do it by that time, or they could not play in the playoffs. I actually don't know off the top of my head if anyone did that this year, but that is the rule. So if someone's been up there all September and they can't play in the playoffs, that rule is probably what happened. Okay? So, and then there's obviously the two-way designation is very important now with the smaller roster sizes, the Ohtani rule, as it has been aptly named, that you can designate. You have to designate one or the other, or you have to say they're a two-way player, and they basically take up one roster spot, which is really cool and really beneficial if you can get a two-way player. But currently, we only have one. So, kind of only applies to him. That's kind of why it's named after him. All right, so games are faster. That's why we changed it. But what I really want to talk about is how important rookies are to the ultimate success in the playoffs, because I think this rears its head every single year. And this isn't just about September call-ups, but it is related, okay? We've had case after case after case of guys getting called up in September and then becoming meaningful pieces or even star players into the playoffs. For example, Corey Seager in September 2015, he hit .337 in 27 games and earned himself an immediate October role with the Dodgers. We have Evan Carter in 2023, very recent. He hit 306 in 23 games in the big leagues. I believe he made his debut against the A's. I was there. Then he hit 300 across 17 postseason games, and they won the World Series. And without Evan Carter, arguably, it might not have happened, right? And he was a rookie. Those are examples of guys being called up in September and that working out. But what if they're called up at another point, maybe not in September, but a little bit earlier? Rookies coming up late in the season is and being productive is very important for success for that team. So let's look at a couple happening right now. We have the New York Mets. We have the Boston Red Sox. A bunch of teams are getting their guys in August or maybe even late July, where they're coming up, they're fresh, they haven't thrown as many innings or seen as or been on their feet as much or played in as many games as most of the major league team, right? So when you're called up and you haven't played as much as everybody else and you have this energy and this adrenaline, it sometimes takes the pressure off of those core guys, the Juan Sotos, the Francisco Lindors of the world, who play every single day, to get a little production out of your young guys that then help you get maybe a little bit of a mental blow or a little of a pressure blow off of you so that you can get ready to go take over in the playoffs. So I have a bunch of examples of this happening recently in all parts, in all positions, right? And like for the Mets, it's they need Tong and they need McLean. So far, so good. Those two guys have really stepped up for that Mets team. And that doesn't mean that they need to go into the playoffs now. I think McLean, we're hoping for this to happen, but it's not like they need to go in and be the aces in the playoffs. But what they do need to do is go be there and be fresh arms and throw really well in September to give them momentum going to the playoffs. Very minimum, okay? And that is what they're getting. These two guys are helping them turn this thing around because, as we talked about last week, starting pitching has been the problem. In Boston, it's Tolley. Another energy guy got called up recently, and they have starting pitching woes. They just released Walker Buehler. He has really struggled, right? They needed somebody to come in and be exciting and be like a vision of the future in order to kind of take the microscope off of the guys who've been there all year and may or may not be dialed in at the moment. Now, we're going to break those guys down in depth later in the show, so stay tuned for that. But here's some guys who, in their rookie years, played huge roles in their team's success. And I'm gonna go back. We're gonna go back in time a little bit here. So I hope we got some old heads in here. All right, this is Marty Bystrom. Okay, 1980, Philadelphia Phillies rookie. He was a September call-up, and he went 5-0 with a 1.5 ERA to help to win a tight division race. And then he started Game 5 of the World Series in Philly's first title run. So they won the World Series. This guy won every one of his first 5 starts and with a 1.5 ERA, arguably being the catalyst to really propel them into the playoffs, feeling strong, feeling high momentum, and ended up pitching well in the playoffs, and they won it all. And without him, and I bet you there's a lot of Philly fans in here who would agree with this, without him, that probably wouldn't happen. Okay? More recently, you may have heard of this guy, Derek Jeter, 1996. He was the Rookie of the Year, and then he hit 361 across 15 postseason games. He was, and then the ALCS of the year, he hit the famous Meyer home run, as you guys all remember. Right? Maybe more recently, maybe you need someone you guys know from your generation. David Price, 2008. They made that Cinderella run all the way to the World Series, where David Price, he debuted in mid-September, so he only got there the last 2 weeks, which was normal. He recorded the final 4 outs for the save in ALCS Game 7, and they clinched their first pennant, and he was a big part of that. On that same team, Evan Longoria homered in his first 2 postseason at-bats that year and hit 6 homers in the playoffs. He was a rookie. So these 2 rookies really carried them. And as you can remember, name anyone else on those teams besides those 2. Took a second, probably. We had Madison Bumgarner in 2010. As a rookie, he threw 8 shutout innings in World Series Game 4 against Texas. And that, as we all know, that was the first of 3 World Series championships in 3 years. Or 5 years, sorry. 5. I meant to say 5. My fault. Sorry. And then we have, we got a couple of Cardinals. We got Michael Wacha, 2013. He was a rookie. NLCS MVP, 13 2/3 scoreless innings versus the Dodgers. Cards won the pennant. And then we have Adam Wainwright. Threw him in the bullpen, 2006, his rookie year. He finished up the World Series, taking down the New York Mets. As a lot of you remember, falling to the ground, throwing his hands up. All of these guys, rookies, and many of them were called up halfway through the year. So, yes, this is an example of these guys being stars, right? But they don't always have to be stars. I remember specifically 2019. We were kind of starting to fade. We won 101 games on the year. This is my Minnesota Twins team. Then we started to fade a little bit. Then we got a bolster. We got a spark of hope, spark of energy from 2 guys. Louis Arias, you may have heard of him, and the Uber driver, Randy Dobnak, who threw great in the last part of August all the way into September and got a playoff start for us. Of course, we got swept in the division series, but they were a huge part of getting us that division title as well, because we had the Cleveland Guardians hot on our heels, another very good team at that time. Rookies with legs under them, rookies that didn't play as many games in the minor leagues, rookies that didn't have this perpetual kind of everyday grind. In the big leagues, it takes more out of you than it takes in the minors, okay? Mentally, physically, spiritually, you can get really worn down, especially if it's just been a battle all year just to maintain your spot or push for a title or for a division lead. And when that happens, you need fresh blood. And when that fresh blood, it only needs to be a couple guys, come up, they have that energy and they have a little bit of success, it can be a spark that drives the other 20 plus guys that were already there and drag them along behind them. And so that's what we're seeing. We're going to see. So pay attention as we move forward here and we get into this year's playoff race. What teams have what rookies stepping up and really taking it to the next level, because those teams may just have the best position going into the playoffs. Interesting. That's what I thought. All right, let's get into some housekeeping. All right, a couple quick things before we move on to the news. We have the Substack. Guys, go join Mayday Max. It's my new streaming service now. It's the Substack. We have Henry, producer DK, both writing regular articles in there. Really interesting stuff. And I have a bunch of videos kind of in the works that are going to be a new series put out. If you choose to subscribe, it is free, but you can subscribe monetarily if you would like to. It's very helpful for us. A large portion of that income goes directly to profit sharing for the employees of my channel and my company. So this is a way that you can give directly to them too if you like the work they're doing. So we do appreciate it, but a lot of great stuff over there. There's only going to be more, and I'm looking to expand this more and more, especially as we go into the off season and we have a little bit more time and not stuff happening all the time. So I appreciate all that, and also with that money put on the table, you have direct opportunity to DM me. So if you have a question or just want to say a nice message or want to be mean, I guess, those are all options you can do if you choose to support us in that way. So thank you. Also, additionally, I have a new thing up for you. Trevor Throws Cheese. So, trevorthrowscheese.com. If you want to keep track of my progress as I try to throw 100 once again with the new videos, how many throws I've made, what velocities I'm at, what my weight is. I know a lot of you guys have wondered, Trevor, how is the weight loss going? You can track that there as well. Just built a nice little website. It's trevorthrowscheese.com. I mean, I'm going to be adding little features on there. There might be Easter eggs. I don't know. But if you were ever wondering, like, what's he at now? Or where's the newest video about that? That's where you can go find it, trevorthrowscheese.com. All right. We got news here in just one moment. But first, a word from my buddies over at Foul Territory.
FT fam, designer clothes can be expensive, but we want our clothes to look good. We want to feel good. We want them to be affordable. And Kratz, if you tell me that I can wear a t-shirt that looks like it's tailored, but it's not actually tailored, and it just comes that way, then sign me up for True Classic.
Have to. You got to sign up for it because these shirts are soft, they're thin, they're durable, and they're very versatile. You can wear them to the gym. You can wear them out to a nice dinner. Let's get after it because these shirts are the real deal.
They are. Check it out. I've got one of the performance ones. It's a nice blue, fits well. I can go to the gym. I can go out. I can do FT in a shirt like this. FT fam, there's a reason why True Classic has sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers, and they are racking up over 200,000 five-star reviews. See for yourself with our exclusive link at trueclassic.com/foul to save. That's trueclassic.com/FOUL.
Upgrade your wardrobe and save at True Classic at trueclassic.com/FOUL. That is foul. trueclassic.com/FOUL. And enjoy. Okay, let's get into some news. The news of the week. A lot of fun stuff to talk about. Boy, am I excited to talk about it. All right, first up, we mentioned him already. He goes by the name, this is Justin Verlander. That's the wrong guy. Jimmy Christmas. What is going on? Nolan McLean. God. He goes by the name of Nolan McLean, and he had another good one. This guy is making Mets history, and not only Mets history, MLB history with his success on the mound so far. And he's got that goatee I mentioned last week. It's coming back. I guess it's 1997 again. But you know what? I'm cool with it. Do whatever you want when you're that nasty. All right? So Nolan McLean has started his career brilliantly, and it continued again last night as he got the last 14 guys that he faced out in a 12-5 victory of the Detroit Tigers. Detroit Tigers team that will most likely also be in the playoffs. After a rocky first inning, McLean went 6 innings and finished with 7 strikeouts with giving up just 2 runs on 3 hits. And the Mets needed the win big time. He's the first Mets pitcher to go 4-0 in his first starts and his first pitcher in the majors to do so since Chase Anderson. So there we go. He's done something for the first time ever for a Met. And the Mets have been around for more than 50, 60 years. So that's pretty impressive. And he was the last one to do it since Chase Anderson went 5-0 for the Diamondbacks in 2014. He is the first pitcher to win his first four career starts with allowing 2 or fewer runs since Jared Weaver did it for the Angels in 2006. Also, he has 28 strikeouts through his first 4 starts. That ranks second in Mets history by a guy you may have heard of. He goes by the name of Nolan Ryan. That guy knew how to strike dudes out. So Nolan McLean is going to be a huge part of any run the Mets are able to make this year. And if they win the World Series, this guy is going to be a part of it. More pitching. That is a phenomenal pitcher face, by the way. I just want to be very clear. For those of you who cannot see this, you need to go look up Justin Verlander's pitcher face and have a nice little chuckle. Justin Verlander pulled off his 265th career win, an 121 pitch effort in 5 innings the other day. Now, he threw 121 pitches and struck out 10 in 5 scoreless innings, which sounds like a lot. That would be because that is a lot. There was a lot of foul balls, but they did take down the Baltimore Orioles 13-2, and he won his second straight decision. Now, he started this year without getting a win in his first 16 starts, but now he has 3 and things have improved. And he has lowered his ERA to a crisp 4.29, which, all things considered, not too bad. And the Giants are cooking a little bit right now, putting themselves quickly back into the conversation to possibly push for a playoff spot. They are now 5.5 games back of the Mets and tied with the Reds. So that is the second most pitches thrown in a game this season behind Gavin Williams, who threw 126 on August 6th against the Mets. If you remember, he had a no-hitter going into the 9th. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Verlander just probably wanted that win, and he was going to throw as many pitches as he could. If you go watch the last pitch of the outing, he looks pretty peeved that it took that many pitches to get there, but he only allowed 3 hits, and he struck out 10. But when the guys won't let you they won't swing and miss when you need them to swing and miss, then you're allowed to get annoyed. And I agree. And that was the last time he threw 120 pitches, 2018. So it's been 7 years since he's thrown 120 pitches a game and decided to do it at 42 years old. So hats off to you, Mr. Verlander. We have some injuries to cover, and I'm very sorry about that. I've seen this in the chat. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Roman Anthony was set to have an MRI today. He had the MRI. We do have an update, and it is a 10-day IL stint with an estimated 4 to 6 week downtime. So he does have a strained oblique. This is not in the report, but as strains go, that is a moderate strain if it's 4 to 6 weeks. Light strains are usually like 2 to 4 weeks. So he is young, though. Remember, he's like, what is he, like 17? He's very young, and so that could shave a week off or two. And maybe he's like Max Scherzer and just refuses to be hurt. That could be part of it too. But we are coming to the wire here. We only have 4 weeks left in the season. So if they make a run, we might see him in the playoffs. But we hope that is the case. Anthony's that he will be missed for a team that is only 2.5 games back of the Toronto Blue Jays in the East and a surging Yankees team coming behind them. So he's been a catalyst. He signed his big deal. He's actually 21-year-old. The 17 thing was a joke. But he's hitting .291 with 861 OPS, and he will be missed. They need him in the lineup, so it'll be interesting to see how they react. Also, another guy in the middle of the lineup, Kyle Tucker, has been on fire lately, but he hit a 3-run home run and then came out of the team's 4-3 victory the other day against the Atlanta Braves with a bum calf. Now, calf tightness is the range of calf tightness can be wild. I'm a guy who has strained both of my calves since I retired, and 2, 3, 4 days off has gotten me okay, and I'm old and fat. So he's young and spry, maybe just a couple of days off, which is what he's going to get. He's not going to play today, and then he gets another day off for tomorrow as they are traveling. So that gives him 2 full days off or 2.5 days off. Hopefully he'll be able to get ahead of the thing, maybe DH him because we have DH both leagues. And if that's the case, I'm not super worried about Kyle Tucker and what he is going to be for the Cubs, who are in second place in the Central, moving forward. So that's all good news. But this last one, not as good as the others. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Has a torn ACL, as reported by the Diamondbacks. He was diagnosed with a torn ACL after he collided with center fielder Blaze Alexander, who was making a diving play on a ball in the left center gap. Unfortunately, it stinks too because Gurriel was absolutely raking. He had 32 RBI since August 1st, which is pretty impressive. That's second to only Kyle Schwarber, who has like 75 home runs somehow. So think about it that way. It's a tough blow for him, for the guy, especially when you get hot. You don't want everyone to get hurt. But hopefully this is something that he can manage and get over quickly and has a full off season to work through it. But he is expected to miss at least the first couple months of next year. All right, that's enough of the injuries. Let's talk a little bit about some frustrated pitchers, because we had 2 extremely frustrated pitchers yesterday. First up, we have, I didn't mean to put that away. First up, Rafael Devers got a sweeper from Kyle Freeland in Colorado and went way back. And as he hit this ball, now, I'm not going to show you the video here because it is YouTube and they don't like that very much. But as you can see here, Kyle didn't like it very much, and Rafael didn't like that he didn't like it. Okay? He admired it. He did. But I'll be honest, having watched the video, it doesn't look any different than any other Rafael Devers home run I've ever seen. Right? He leans, he kind of holds the bat with both hands and kind of flicks it and then runs kind of slowly. But I'll be honest, Kyle kind of snapped a little bit. And I watching it in real time, Freeland, has not been a good year for the Rockies in general, and Kyle Freeland has been very much on that ride with them, right? Things have not gone well for him and not for his team, and he seemed to not really like it. The barking continued, the bench is clear, and the leaders of the Giants made it very quickly got out of that dugout, namely Matt Chapman, who ended up making some contact with Freeland. There were some punches thrown. Willie Adames was in there making his voice known, but it got messy. It got messy quick, and Freeland was hot. He was hot. He mentioned later or after the game in his presser that he felt very disrespected. It was extremely disrespectful the way he was acting, especially in their home park. I've been there. I know what frustration feels like. I have blown up. I just recently released a video on YouTube that I recommend you check out, talking about my final year, and I went on the anxiety IL, and that was that entire thing, that catalyst for me going on the IL was having one of these blowups, but in the clubhouse, not at anyone, but still I got to a point where I was so frustrated with what was happening out on the field and what I felt like I had no control over, and just generally getting my face beat in, that I couldn't keep it in anymore, and I just exploded. And I exploded in an uncontrollable way, and that's a little bit what we saw Freeland. So I feel what he felt. Like, I'm like with you. You got to try to keep it off the field and try to get into the dugout before you do it. But like when you're in the middle of an inning, man, where else are you going to go? So this is what we get. This is what we get. Now, do I ever condone anybody doing this stuff? Absolutely not. Is there? Should you never bat flip? No. But this is, if you are going to admire your home runs, and if you're gonna flip a little bit or celebrate a little bit, this is something that could happen, and that's just a risk that you're willing to take, right? So I will say it's almost to the point where, like, I think that both guys should have the right to do the things that they're doing, but unfortunately that means the bench is clear and that both teams kind of go at it. Is that what you want? I think the league would say no. I think that fans might say yes. So, stay safe out there. But I do understand getting frustrated is one thing, and it's very hard to keep to yourself sometimes. And I think there's even a better example of this next situation that we're going to talk about. Framber Valdez crossed up his catcher, says nothing. Now, what you just saw was a cross-up after a home run that Framber allowed to Trent Grisham. Now, this was another thing that I have some experience in. Let me just kind of break this situation down for you. On a 1-0 pitch to Trent Grisham, Framber Valdez is out there shaking. The bases are loaded. It is very clear that the catcher behind the plate is trying to get a pitch down, but he can't figure out how to get it down. So he said, step off, step off. Instead of stepping off, Framber, who seems to be already frustrated by the fact that this is taking so long, and I will say this, he could have stepped off, because you get disengagement when guys are on base, right? But because he was out of the windup, he might have forgotten that. So how the rule works now with the pitch clock is that if nobody is on base, you cannot step off. So if you felt like you can't step off, he's like, I'm not going 2-0. I'm just going to throw the pitch. But the problem was the bases were loaded. And then he threw a fastball right down the middle, and Trent Grisham took him way back into the Crawford boxes. So Framber's pissed off. He's like, whatever, I'll just throw that pitch. That is the same thing that I was thinking when I lost my mind. Whatever, man. Because the pitch clock or the pitch comm takes so long to say the thing it's saying. It's like, especially if you are also calling the where in the box you want it. So if you're like fastball and away, it's like fastball away. Like that took a second and a half. You only have 15, you have 20 seconds, but with nobody on, there's 15. So if like they push it, or they, God forbid, they say sinker or something, you don't throw one of those. You're like, no. So you immediately feel like you're not on the same page. It was very clear these two were not on the same page. Then we get what we just saw on camera for the next pitch. Framber shakes to the pitch he wants, and it's very clear he threw a fastball at his own catcher that probably called a changeup or a breaking ball and was surprised. He was not happy about it. Now, after the game, Framber, through an interpreter, said, Hey, it was a mistake. It's my fault. I didn't mean to do that. Sometimes you get your wires crossed, and it is what it is. Okay, that happens. But when that happens, usually there's some look of surprise on the pitcher's face. There's some sort of, oh, my bad, dude. We messed up. Framber did not act that way. He quickly turned around and just walked to the back of the mound as if he's like, that's what you get. So the catcher also looked like, hey, man, what the heck? What was that? And even Volpe was like, dude, what was that? It was a fastball right down the middle at 93, first pitch in at bat, and they got crossed up with nobody on base. So to me, that screams frustrated pitcher. That screams frustrated pitcher taking it out on the young guy because Framber is the veteran in this situation. Now, crossing up your catcher is one of the worst possible things you could do on purpose. That is some Bush League stuff. That is about as bad as it gets because the catcher is supposed to be your best friend right now. So getting on the same page with your catcher is, if that's what's frustrating you, not being on the same page with them, not being dialed in, not being copacetic, maybe crossing them up on purpose is only going to make that problem worse, not better. So I know he said what he said. He made his comments. There's no reason for me to go against what he says, but for me, that doesn't add up the way that it should, that it normally does. Even in the past, even when guys were told to hit a batter on purpose, they would at least give a little like, oh, dang it. Just like a little one. Like even if you know you're faking it, you try to fake it a little bit. And he didn't even try it. Like there was no reaction at all. To the point where it's almost hard to react the way he did to that situation. And it's almost impossible if it was an accident. So, do with that which you guys hear that? That echo? Think what you want. Think what you want. It's completely up to you. But that is my take on the thing. That's what it looked like to me. Not a great look. I don't like that much at all. And maybe if I saw a teammate do that, I wouldn't be probably letting it go. But he said it wasn't intentional, so I'm gonna take him at his word there. All right. Let's move on from the news. But before we get on the news, we have to tell you about another exciting offer. Not me though. The other Foul Territory boys.
We're throwing a curveball at you this week for our Arena Club segment, as AJ has opened up a Pokemon slap pack.
Is that how you say it?
Pokemon slap pack. Pokemon. Don't ask me to say what that card is, but what are you doing with that card?
I already sold it. Are you kidding me?
Sold it back, baby.
I bought it, and then I got more money than I paid for the pack, so I sold it straight back.
You bought it for
$250.
You sold it for
$299.
And you can go get yourself something that you maybe know how to pronounce.
Yes, or know what it is. I just did it because I saw certain people opening Pokemon, and they were making money, and guess what? I got lucky. Made money off of it too.
Exactly. But of course, if you're into sports cards, that is something that you can find a ton of on the Arena Club Marketplace. Buy, sell, slab pack, trade. 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase can be had at arenaclub.com/foul and use the code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL.
Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. That is arenaclub.com/foul. And use code FOUL. And you'll get that 20% off. Opening packs is fun. Go check it out at Arena Club. All right, guys. Usually I have a deep dive investigative story for you when we get into this portion of the show. But today is a little different. Today, we got our first mailbag ever here on the show. I asked the question over on Instagram in my community. Join that. It's called Mayday. There's 5,000 people in there. We have a blast. I get to ask all kinds of cool questions. I get great answers. And then I also asked in my community page, I put a post on YouTube, and our beautiful YouTube vidders over at Trevor May Baseball gave us some good questions too. So I have a list of a lot of questions, and we are going to get right into them. And I'm going to give you my best breakdown, my deepest dive possible on these things as well. And I'm even going to probably open up MS Paint here so that I can do it even better and show you exactly how these things work. So without further ado, let's get right into a little bit of questions. We love doing questions here. Okay. First up, from Redhead Man. I've heard a lot about it. The owners are going to be fighting for the CBA, but what do you think the players will be lobbying for? That is very interesting. That is a great question because there's a lot going on here, but I will try to keep it as short and sweet as humanly possible. Right now, the narrative has been the owners are going to try to go really hard for a salary cap, okay? Or something similar. So what players are going to do is try to, if that is a direction that they are very interested in going, players are going to try to, or should try, to then start to reduce control of their careers. So right now, there's the controls for 6 years to get a free agency. A big get would be getting that number down. Okay, so reducing arbitration years, even maybe even going to arbitration earlier. Everyone's a Super 2, things like that. Okay. Also, opening the book should be part of that too. But these are just stipulations that only exist if there's some sort of revenue-based salary cap situation. Okay, I think that right now, though, what's happening is a lot of times how these things work is the owners are aggressive about it. The owners are the ones that initiate what they want. They're usually the ones trying to make the changes, and the players then try to kind of carve out out of the things that already exist that they would prefer not to have, control being the big one, in response, right? So now that we've had Rob kind of be out there and do a little bit of a media tour and kind of make it pretty clear that this is something addressing the economics of the game is how he says it, is going to be a big thing for them. Expect the players to then come up with what would that look like, what would they want, and then what would that cost them in terms of things that we think that we could benefit and make even loosen up that are pretty strict. And the big one for me is how service time works and how team control works. So expect that to be part of the narrative. But again, the players don't usually know what they want to do until the last year of the CBA. So we're a little jumping the gun here. Usually it doesn't happen this way. Usually we don't have this conversation until after this offseason into next spring training. So expect it to pick up then. Wayman, what's the clubhouse like for out of it teams now that the season is winding down? Can secondary goals motivate a team to some W's, like core guys looking to finish strong and build morale? To finish strong, basically, is what the end said. There was a couple letters there, but I remember what it said. So teams that are out of it are interesting, okay? So there is one thing that doesn't feel great for a lot of guys, and that is playing for yourself. When a bad team has a guy who's going to free agency, sometimes it can get a little bit muddy. For teams that are truly out of it, usually they let their young guys who they think are going to be a bigger part of the team moving forward, especially if they go back to their winning ways, get them time, put them in the spotlight, put them in the center of the thing, and see what happens. That's usually how they try to approach it. So I would expect that to be kind of the better thing that's happens these days. For me, it was always, my dad always preached to me, like, that's not how you start, it's how you finish. So I always wanted to finish strong getting into the next year. So that was always my motivation. I think most guys carry that, especially if they're out of it, but it's hard. It's really hard. So you carry motivation to prepare yourself for next year, or like keep working on the thing that you're working on, because there sometimes is one big benefit, and that's the stakes are down. Like you're not so under a microscope when you try to change things, and that can be really valuable. So that is how you try to operate, but sometimes, man, you're just so tired that you're like, I got to take a brain break here and just like get lackadaisical for a second, and you tried not to do it, but man, is it a long season. All right, what stadiums have the best and worst bullpens to sit and throw in? Best bullpens to sit and throw in. I'll say best bullpen, the one that I like I always like the ones with the indoors. I really like Truist. That was nice, air conditioned, and it's hot down in Atlanta, so that was always good. Oh, the worst one was Kansas City, man. You're like in a brick oven. It's so hot. It's so hot. There's no shade. There's a big fan that does not work. One of the worst ones ever was also old Arlington. Oh my God, that was the worst place on the planet. The worst one's the throw-in. Boston's a little bit, gets a little sketchy. If you're a little wild that day, dude, you're just you yeeting the ball at the other pitcher. It's on the other side, or maybe a catcher standing there. Yeah, the wall's not very high. That can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Tampa sucks. Just kind of all over. Just total. But at least it's inside. So any place where you feel like you're going to throw it on the field, I mean, Oakland, not great either. I didn't like Oakland. But, neither one of those places are being used right now. So Yankees is good. I like them, even though you're getting chicken tenders thrown at you kind of as you warm up. It is what it is. But it did have an air-conditioned little box that you could hang out in when it was hot. So I'm a simple guy. Trevor, what team do you think Justin Verlander's Hall of Fame cap will be, or do you think it'll be a blank cap? I don't think it'll be a blank cap. I'm leaning towards the Astros because he got a Cy Young and he got his World Series. That's what I'm leaning towards. I know, but I think it's really close. It's going to be a really tough decision for him. But he went back to the Astros too and waived his. No, didn't he? Yeah, he waived his no trade clause to go there. I'm thinking Houston is probably the place that he has the fondest memories. I feel like even though he was a little bit older, those were probably his most dominant years. So my guess would be Houston. Who were your baseball heroes growing up? Thank you for asking. Mariners fan from Washington State. So Randy Johnson, Edgar Martinez is probably my overall favorite player ever. Ichiro, Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner. But even going to the Dan Wilsons, the John Olerud's, all these guys I really looked up to. But pitching-wise, Randy Johnson was my dude. He was left-handed, though. I don't throw like him. And Nolan Ryan, could watch Nolan Ryan clips all day. The ride heater before ride heaters were a thing. Those were my big guys. And then probably the last one maybe that really got me to the big leagues was Jamie Moore. Because I remember my dad pointing at the TV and be like, Trevor, you're 13 and you throw harder than him right now. You could play in the big leagues. And I believed that. And then I went to the big leagues. So I guess it worked. I always wondered, this is from Steamboat Seattle. I always wondered about the Japanese baseball versus the MLB, such as the ball and strike zone being different. Why do so many players go to the MPB and then all of a sudden come back and be good in the majors? So there's a couple reasons for this, okay? Players go to Japan because, one, they don't see a big league opportunity in the big leagues long term. So it's a lot of guys pre-arb to get DFA'd, or they're gonna get they just don't see themselves being able to be part of the team long term. Or they're a fringe guy on the team and they're just they've only been up for a little bit, but then the MPB. So how this works is the Japan reaches out to the MLB, says we're interested in this guy, and then the team can decide whether or not they'll release you your contract and let you go. Then in Japan, you're paid better. So these guys are okay, I'm making $700,000 here. They're gonna give me a two-year $4 million deal. That's real money. I don't think that I'm gonna get an opportunity in the big leagues for that. So I'm gonna go try to do this, okay? So what it does, it serves as your developmental time. So instead of being in the minor leagues and kind of forgotten about, you can go over to the Japanese league where the competition isn't quite as good usually, though it is getting much better. I think the top players are obviously good enough. There's just less of those top players than there are in the major leagues. The range of talent is wider there, though it is getting better and better and better. So guys, in Korea is usually the guys who are minor leagues or Korea. They'll go to Korea and they'll come over, like Eric Fetty did, for example. So these guys go over there thinking that they're going to be in the minor leagues here, or it's very likely, and they're I want an opportunity to play at a high level and make a little bit more money. And then what they do is they develop in Japan in a high level. And then so they find some success, they find something that works, a breaking ball that works, command that works, something works, and then they come back and they get an opportunity again. And the major leagues have more and more over the years recognized that success in Japan is translating. So that's why it works that way. It's like an alternative to going, it's like the guys who are on the fringe who need to figure something out and then they go figure it out in Japan because they get an opportunity because some team in Japan is interested in them, usually. That's usually how it works. This is a good one. If you had to recast Major League with former teammates, who's your Vaughn, Taylor, Hayes, Serrano, and Harris? And what about Dorn? All right, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to do it. I thought a little bit about it, but I'm going to really, really try to nail this, okay? So Ricky Vaughn, who I want to say a guy I played in the minors with, but I don't know if a lot of you guys will know who he is. His name's Jason Knapp, and he acts exactly like Ricky Vaughn, but I won't say him. I'll do a big league guy. Ricky Vaughn is Jake DeGrom. The rookie comes up, he's just electric. He's kind of a little bit of a loose cannon, which I've heard. Old Jake DeGrom was a little bit of a loose cannon when he was a rookie. My Jake Taylor, oof. Jake Taylor would be Kurt Suzuki, Willie Mays Hayes, Byron Buxton, and I think he would appreciate that. Buck came up running all over the place, so athletic, almost too athletic for his own good, and he's both center fielders. Pedro Serrano, Kenys Vargas. If you don't know who Kenys Vargas is, go watch a highlight reel and you'll see it. And then Harris is very clearly Rich Hill. Rich Hill is definitely Harris. And then the last guy, I'll go with Dorn, Josh Donaldson. Josh Donaldson's Dorn. Third baseman. All right. Moving forward. Are there any cool kickbacks or bonuses of any kind from trading card companies? Like, do you get anything other than handcrafts or for signing certified auto cards? Or do you get like any of the baseball cards basically you're featured in? Yes. So you can get like one of the pretty exclusive ones. You don't get the one of ones, obviously. Though sometimes they make you a one of one, which is cool. That never happened for me, but that happened for the guys who were like actually big deals. But you get paid obviously really well per signature, which is cool, which is great, which is the big part of it. That's why we're willing to sit there and sign 10,000 things in one sitting, because you get paid well for it. But oftentimes they give you like a sample, so you get a lot of the default cards, and then you get a couple of the limited ones. So you get like one of 25s, maybe one of 10s sometimes. And then if you really want one, you can ask for one. If you want a top one of 5 or a special one, if you're a card guy, they'll work with you. So it's kind of a cool thing. But like, if you don't ask, like I wasn't huge on it. I have a bunch of cards, but I wasn't like asking for them. I kind of regret not doing that. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then you get like there's a kickback. You get $500 a year for licensing as well, which is, it's something you forget about, which is nice. It's pretty cool. You get a check in spring training for letting them use your likeness, which was a nice little perk. All right, guys, we have I believe we have about 7 more minutes left in this hour. If we don't get through all of these, we're going to continue this after an intermission over on the other channel. So make sure that you stick around for that, and then we will head over there at that time. Okay. What's a pitch you tried to learn and could never get the hang of? Like if you could add a pitch to a fastball, curve, slider, change base, what do you think would be the most lethal? So the only pitch I really could never get a hang of was a cutter, because I was a natural supinator outside the ball naturally. So I kind of was already throwing cutter spin, but then I kind of like naturally turned it into a ride fastball. So when I turned that farther, what would happen is I get really around the ball, and then I would be too supinated, so my four seam sucked. So like I could get a ball to cut a little bit. So the cutter was like okay, it was like okay pitch, but it ruined my best pitch. So I had to stop throwing it. I would say splitter, but my splitter was nasty when I threw it, but it ruined all my other pitches as well. Like my cutter was just okay, like it wasn't worth it. Splitter might have been worth it. I really liked throwing my splitter, but I'm gonna be honest. And also like a sinker was something I never really could do, but I didn't really need it. So like throwing a true sinker, I never really tried. I never really tried to throw a seam shifted sinker either. I think I could have done it. So I never really needed a 2-seam. I was always a 4-seam because of the way my slider broke down. So I was always up and down, and that was kind of the meta in baseball at the time. So there's no reason to change it. But cutter was always the pitch I really struggled with, especially as a starter. What is the living situation like for a player who might see multiple organizations in the span of 5 years? Do athletes have access to special 4-month lease apartments? How many home cooked meals do you get in a busy traveling season? Home cooked meals? Meaning, very rarely did I cook at home, but you had food prepared for you all the time. So it's like, that might count, right? It wasn't like restaurants were catering every time, but yeah, not a lot of home cooked meals. In terms of leases, there were very few places where you get a 6-month lease, which is the length of the season, and hopefully you get those. But the most of the time, you were signing like a year-long lease and then trying to get out of it early. That's usually how it worked. It was a headache, really annoying. Sometimes you can stay in business professionals. Some guys stayed in the hotels, so they literally went on the road to a hotel, back home on a hotel, whatever, living out of a suitcase. That sucks. Matt Belisle, who played until he was 40, basically just kept everything in his truck and just lived wherever. And not to say he was like homeless. He didn't live in his truck. What I'm trying to say is he just like everything he ever needed was always in his truck. So if he got traded or whatever, he just sent his truck wherever he's going and he had everything he needed. He's a very simple guy. But he would just kind of stay in extended stay places for a month here, a month there, whatever. Or just like someone wanted a roommate and wanted to split rent or whatever. That sometimes happens. He was just very simple. And he was good with that. That drives me crazy. I have to have a home base, so I would always rent. But yeah, it sucks. If you're a year-to-year guy, oh my God, it's just you're just constantly moving and constantly having to plan to move. And I hate it. But I think everyone hates that. I don't think everyone does. All right, love the anecdotes about clubhouses and team atmospheres you were part of. What is funny or otherwise interesting clubhouse story you've never told before? I have a couple Mike Pelfrey stories. So, one time, Mike Pelfrey. So, here's what you guys need to know about Mike Pelfrey. You should look him up if you don't know who he is. He was a starting pitcher. I was with him with the Twins. He was one of those guys that if you bet him literally $1, he would take it. Like he loved to prove you wrong, right? So one time, and then Phil Hughes and Glenn Perkins and Ricky Nolasco. Love that about him. So sometimes they would just like do little simple stuff. They'd be like, hey man, bet you can't eat that entire baker's dozen of donuts in one sitting. It's the day he wasn't pitching, and he did it. It was disgusting. I watched him do it. One time he ate 13 donuts in one sitting. Just sitting in the one spot, he ate 13 straight donuts. That's literally like 800 grams of sugar. I don't know how he did it. He was sweating. It was really, really disgusting. But he made it through, so I got to give him hats off. But one time, so this isn't quite a clubhouse story, but one time we're doing bunting practice. I'm in his group with him. It's me. It's the starting pitcher. It's the starting pitchers all bunting. It's me. It's Pelfrey. It's Nolasco. It's Phil Hughes. It's I don't know, Scott Diamond might have been Tommy Malone or something. And Rod Carew is teaching us how to bunt. And we're on a machine. He's feeding a machine in like the bullpen. So it's like a drill we're doing in spring training. And we're done with the drill and we're like waiting to move on to the next station because that's how things were run in spring training. And Ricky goes, hey, Pelf, I'll give you $100 to shoot yourself in the stomach, point blank, when that thing's turned off on high on the pitching machine. And Rod Carew goes, I'm leaving, and just like walked off. And Pelf just let it speed up, threw it, shot it into his stomach, and then Ricky laughed for a while. Though it did hit him in the belt, it didn't hit him quite in the stomach. It hit him a little bit lower, so it was a little bit scary because Pelf was 6'7". But that was the type of thing that Pelfrey did, and I just sat there as a rookie like, we're children. This is silly. This is the silly. What are we doing? And but that's just stuff you do. And Pelf was one of the guys. Just don't challenge Pelfrey to do anything because you might just mess around and get what you want. Anyway, let's move on. We have a few more questions here. We're about halfway through this segment, but I want to move on to hour two because we are complete here in Foul Territory. I know we started a little bit late. We had a lot of things going on, but we are here and we are ready to move over. So if you are with us here in Foul Territory, join us over on Trevor May Baseball YouTube channel for the second half of the show. We got a bunch more stuff to talk about, but if you are on Twitch, you stay right where you are, and we will have a little 2-minute break, and then I will be right back, all right? So Hang out. We'll see you soon.